Disclaimer. In this episode of Circulating Conversations, I had the pleasure of hosting two guests for the first time, which meant they shared the mic. As a result, you might notice some mic shuffling noises throughout the episode. Despite this, rest assured that everyone's voices are audible. We apologize for the inconvenience and thank you for bearing with us. Please enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to the Circulating Conversations Podcast, where we discuss library topics, genre deep dives, and book recommendations. I'm your host, Rachel, an Adult Services Librarian, and this episode I have two guests with me, so please introduce yourselves.
I'm Sarah, and I'm a reference assistant.
And I'm Claudia. I am the Support Services Manager.
Thank you both for joining me. So for this episode of the podcast, we are going to be talking about book preferences, which is why there's three of us. So there's three reading formats that we're going to be talking about. So there's print books, eBooks, and audiobooks, and each one of us kind of represents a preference for one of those reading formats. So we're going to be starting with the classic, which is our print books. So Sarah's going to take that.
Yeah, so I want to start off by saying I definitely do also consume ebooks. I have listened to audiobooks before, and I have enjoyed it, but I always find myself coming back to reading print books. And that might be partially because I grew up avid reader, doing the summer reading programs and all of those things. So it's kind of like going back and kind of nostalgic in a way almost. But for me, there are a couple differences between the formats that kind of lead me back to print every time. And one of those being, you can obviously see your page count with an ebook. Not sure about audiobooks, so Claudia will have to confirm that for me later. But, when you're reading a print book, you're immediately, constantly seeing your progress in the book. You're seeing, what you've done so far. You're also seeing how close you are to the end. And a lot of times that kind of pushes me to keep reading. Yeah. Especially I see I'm maybe 75% of the way through. I might push through and read for a couple hours and try to finish that book. With an ebook, I'm not always so certain of that, and I kind of find myself,
less motivation.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that happened to me reading Outlander. Did not realize it was such a big book, and I was trying to read it as an ebook, and it was not working for me.
Which I think ebooks lie to you.
Yes.
Because I guess you're getting less of the page when you're reading an ebook because it could be bigger print, obviously. So it'll tell you it'll take I was reading a book that I think was 500 pages, but it told me it was 900 pages. Yes. And I can imagine that might be discouraging.
Yes, that definitely happens. Yeah. And I've also noticed, and this might just be a kind of a personal preference, I'm on the screen all day on the computer. When I get home, I kind of want to unplug a little bit. I don't want to be on my phone or a tablet. And so reading a print book, right before I go to bed or something like that, it gives me a really good break from a screen. And I think I also really enjoy that. I get a lot of eye strain being on the computer all day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I find that reading print books really helps with that and kind of takes that away from me.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine just from a doctor's perspective that they would probably be if you're still it's great if you're reading before bed, but if you're reading it on a screen, exactly, you're probably not going to go to sleep. Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then probably the other thing that I've noticed a lot lately is I've been annotating my books at home, which I know is a controversial thing, marking in your books and all that kind of stuff.
If it's your own book,
people feel very opinionated about that. But with my own personal books at home, I really like tabbing my favorite passages and marking quotes and writing in them. And I feel like I don't always get that same experience with the ebook, just highlighting the keynotes. And it also kind of makes the reading experience a little bit more active rather than passive, which I kind of saw myself getting into. And I just think that brings like a whole nother level to my reading.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Claudia, do you have any opinions on print books that you either agree with Sarah or maybe some stuff that you don't like about print?
Just listening to Sarah, I think I might want to go back to print books for a while. I just don't have time for print books, but I do understand the reason that Sarah is giving, is that, it's great to have it in your hand. It's, great to know where you are in the book, especially with Outlander, which is eternal. So yeah, definitely is an argument in that favor.
I would say overall, you covered a lot of the topics that most people do say are the reasons why they enjoy it. I'm going to briefly just give something that I don't like about print books, and I guess it depends on the book that you have in your hand, but sometimes if I'm reading and the page just won't stay open, that drives me nuts.
They do make like little tools on Etsy. I forget what they're called, but they are to like hold it open while you're reading. Because
I'm just there and then the page flips over and I'm like, no, flip back.
Yes.
And then also, and this is in a much broader sense, I don't think of this as personal opinion, but this is just something that I saw, is that people say that print books are less environmentally friendly, which is true. But I'm not going to judge anyone for reading a print book.
I can see that, I guess.
So now we're going to move on to eBooks, which is my preference. So eBooks is a digital format in which you can read a print book. So you're still reading it, you're not listening, but you're doing it on a device like a computer, tablet, or smartphone. There are many different apps that you can use to download digital books. In fact, if you have a Leesburg Library card, you have access to both Libby and Hoopla, which gives you access to not only ebooks, but also audiobooks, graphic novels, and in some cases for Hoopla, even movies and TV. So just going back to what I like about it, which in a way is kind of funny, because it's what you don't like about the ebook that you like about print. I kind of get that from an ebook, where you said like you feel like you can know your spot, and you can track your spot in an ebook too, and I like that.
Right.
But also, even though it makes the book seem longer, like I said about like the actual book being 500 pages, but then in ebook format it said 900, because I feel like I'm flipping through the pages faster though. So I feel like, I started on page 10 and now it feels like I'm already, 50 pages, after that, but it feels like not that much time has passed. And I don't know, that tricks me into thinking that it's going faster than I think. I don't think it actually is going faster than I think, but it tricks my brain into that. And I like that for whatever. It's like, oh, this isn't taking as long as I thought.
Yeah.
Also, it has the accessibility of being able to enlarge the print, or changing how you view it. Like if you want, white print on a black background, you can change that too. Where, with regular print, you either got regular print or large print.
Right.
And then, so like you can really enlarge it up if you want to. Also, as I said, I don't want to fight with the pages of a book, so it automatically saves your place, so you don't have to think about, oh, where did I leave off, or let me grab a bookmark because of it. And it's portable, very easily portable, because it can just be on your phone. One thing that I do agree with, though, is just being able to annotate or take notes. I would say that that's probably easier in print, where I'll feel like, oh, I need to like grab a notebook or something if I want to do that on an ebook. But yeah, that's what I like about it. I don't know. For me, I would probably say the biggest thing is I don't want to fight with a book, and it's easier for me to just have a screen in front of me personally. But it is true, eye strain.
Yeah.
real thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you guys have any opinions on ebooks?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I still prefer print, but I will read an ebook. I have a Kindle Paperwhite at home, and I do occasionally read on there. And like you said, I like throwing that in my bag, and I might not touch it while I'm out, but I do like having access to a book, you know, throughout my day. I can just put it in my bag with me and take it anywhere, and you know, I can read if I have a spare few minutes.
I have definitely found, I have not read a lot of ebooks, but I have found the convenience of having them on a tablet or on the phone if I find myself waiting somewhere, in a waiting room at a doctor's office or a waiting room at an airport or whatever. You can just bring up a book on your device and read it. And if by chance, you know, you have a regular book with you, a print book, and you finished it, okay, so let's download, you know, something else. So definitely, you know, I do see the advantages of that.
All right, and now on to the third format, which is audiobooks. So there are 3 different ways that you can enjoy audiobooks. One way is an audiobook CD, which can be unabridged or abridged. So unabridged just means the whole version, and abridged is a shortened version of the story. And depending on how long the book is, it could come with multiple CDs that you obviously will insert into a player, whether that be in your car, a computer, a CD player, or even a standalone CD player if people still have those. You can also use a DAD, which stands for Digital Audio Device. So this is a preloaded portable audiobook that runs on batteries and comes with a lanyard so you can wear it around your neck. And you just need headphones to be able to plug in and listen. And then you have your digital audiobooks, which you can listen to through an app. Again, if you have a Leesburg Library card, you have access to apps like Libby and Hoopla, which means that you have access to audiobooks that you can listen to on your device, like your phone, tablet, or computer. So Claudia, you were representing our audiobook listeners, so go ahead.
I just wanted to start off by saying I was exposed to audiobooks a long time ago when I was a teacher, and my students were English as second language learners. Mm-hmm. And we used the old-time cassette players, yes. Okay, so that kind of ages me. But we found that by listening to a book, because I was teaching reading in addition to other things, by listening to a book, the students could get a very good sense of the pronunciation of the reader, and not just a teacher or another student. Comprehension, it was definitely an issue there. Mm-hmm. They're listening, and then they're able to comprehend as opposed to struggling over words. And so that was a long time ago, but definitely a very good beneficial kind of way to teach. And then recently, I have been doing audiobooks again because my commute to work is rather long. Mm-hmm. My previous commute to work was 10 minutes and you couldn't really even play a song. But now, actually it was somebody who said, well, why don't you just listen to audiobooks? And I'm like, okay, let's do this. And now I find myself listening to audiobooks on the way home, on my commute, parking either in the parking lot or my driveway to listen to the end of the chapter.
Of course. Definitely.
And you can say that the narrator in an audiobook can make or break a book.
100%.
Oh, definitely, okay? Whereas if you're reading a print book, your own voice is in your head, okay? And the same would be for a digital a book. It's just that's the voice, and I don't know whether you guys use different voices for different people, but yes, mm-hmm. The audiobook, the narrator is very, very important. And it also helps me with comprehension. Mm-hmm. So when I am commuting, I'm listening to the audiobooks. I find that they're very, very useful. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And going on what you just said about retention, there are some people who say that audiobooks are better for memory retention and you remember more of the story.
Oh, definitely.
Than if you're reading it.
Definitely.
In fact, I think out of the 3 formats that we're talking about, the worst for it is eBooks.
Probably.
And because they say, like, again, like you said with print, when you're actively holding it in your hand, then you're more likely to be paying attention to what you're reading. So yeah, it seems like both audiobooks and print books can really help with the retention part of it. And with ebooks, I think you are a bit more likely to speed through. And I'm not going to lie, I probably do see that just doing a little bit of speed reading as I'm doing it. And if I'm gaining all I should be from the story is probably questionable. But I would argue that with audiobooks, because I have dabbled in audiobooks too. In fact, I went through a pretty big audiobook phase for a time. And then I haven't touched them in like a year. That you can still sometimes end up tuning out, especially if you're multitasking, which it's a good thing that you can multitask. That's definitely a plus for it. But if you are multitasking, sometimes you can tune out what you're listening
totally agree there. I totally agree. But when you're a captive audience driving, well, I guess you could tune out also, but hopefully you're paying attention to something, whether it be the book
right,
or the road.
or the road. Do you have any opinions about audiobooks, Sarah?
Yeah, I haven't listened to a lot of audiobooks, but I did go through a period while I was trying them out, and it's kind of expanding on what you just said, Rachel. I was listening to them in the gym, and I was listening to them while I was driving in the car, because I thought that would be a really good use of my time. Mm-hmm. And I did enjoy it, but I found that was what was happening to me. I was focusing on the other task I was doing, and I was having to rewind. Mm-hmm. I was having to go back chapters because I vaguely remembered things, but I was not retaining it all. And so that's kind of been my one thing with it. Mm-hmm. But I will say, like, accessibility-wise, I think audiobooks are amazing. I mean, right. I know people who are visually impaired mm-hmm. and they love reading and they physically cannot. And so audiobooks are an awesome way for them to still like engage in this habit Absolutely. That they love. Yeah.
And going off that, though I want to talk more about what likes and dislikes, I did want to bring up a program that is available nationwide. It's called the Talking Books Program. It's offered by NLS, which stands for the National Library Service for the Blind or Print Disabled. So they provide a free service where you have access to a Bard Mobile, which is a downloadable app with audiobooks, magazines, and music scores. And then you also can get Talking Books, which is almost like a cassette player where you can plug in a book that's kind of in the form of a cassette and it'll play for you. So if anyone listening is interested in applying for that program or wants more information, you can always call the Leesburg Library or stop by and we would be happy to help you with that. Now, just going back to likes and dislikes about audiobooks. So in the idea that sometimes you tune it out, it's also less engaging as far as being able to take notes. 'Cause I doubt anyone who's listening to an audiobook is also having a notebook right next to them and is taking notes about a story. And then I also want to go back to the narrator, can make or break the story because I definitely feel that. Probably one of the best experiences I ever had with an audiobook is both stories, her like big known stories, the author Madeline Miller, Circe and The Song of Achilles. I listened to those both on audiobooks. I started with Circe because it was recommended to me as an audiobook. And yeah, both narrators did an awesome job. They pulled emotion out of me. I was happy. I was angry. I was crying. And that's what I think a good narrator can do. And I think it's interesting too because one of our other coworkers, you'll know her from the last episode, Elaine, she read the book Circe too, but she read it. She didn't listen to the audiobook and she wasn't as in love with it as I was. And she's like, I don't think I got the emotion that you got from reading it that, you know, I did from listening to it with that narrator. But then at the same time, I tried the Song of Ice and Fire series. I tried to listen to that on audiobook because those are long books, and I was like, I'll feel like the end is never in sight if I'm looking at the page numbers. But yeah, the narrator didn't work for me. And I'm not saying it because he didn't fit or he wasn't good, because I do think that there's a difference between like being a good narrator and then it just not working for you personally. And that's how I think it was for me. I'm not going to say he didn't fit the story. He's just not the voice that I wanted to listen to. So I did end up having to go back to reading it on ebook and looking at those 1,000 pages that I had to read. And then of course in other cases there are narrators that are flat out just boring.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone else has other experiences with audiobooks and narrators that they want to talk about.
Definitely. Anytime that I have recommended the book Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, I tell people you have to listen to it because it's about an octopus, and the octopus narrates quite a bit of the book. Talks about his captivity and whatever, and the person, I have his name, Michael Urie, narrates it when the octopus is talking, and it's amazing. Okay, it's just he just makes the octopus sound so regal almost. It's just I definitely would recommend somebody listening to the audiobook because of the narrator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinions, Sarah?
Sure. Yeah. I haven't done this yet, but I've had it recommended to me to listen to biographies that then are narrated by the person it's about.
Oh, yeah.
Like Spare is one of those. And from everyone that I've heard, you know, it's just such a cool thing hearing about these people's lives from them. And it just makes it such a more interesting experience than just reading it on the page. So I do find that really interesting, and that does make me want to listen to them. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak to that because that's how I consumed the book I'm Glad My Mother Died by Jeanette McCurdy, her biography, and I listened to it on audiobook, which she narrated. And I saw some people critiquing that they didn't feel like they were getting enough emotion. And I'm like, she's talking about her own life. I'm like, I think she did fine.
Yeah.
I got where she was coming from, and I feel like she inserted some comedy into it as well. So I enjoyed listening to her read her own book. Now I would just like to mention a Pew Research Center study from 2021 that found that within a 12-month period, 32% of people said that they read print only, 33% said they read both print and digital can include both audiobooks and ebooks, and 9% had read digital only. So I think what we can kind of gather here between all of us is we all have branched out and dabbled in the three formats that we've talked about. So why do you think that it's not so common anymore to just stick to one format of reading, and that people do kind of bounce between them, or at least try all three?
Well, I definitely feel that these statistics will change as the years go by, as just more content is available. But I definitely think that people are branching out. Could be depending on the situation and the availability. Somebody could come into the library and they say, I want this book. And we say, well, you know, we don't have it right now in print, or there's, 87 people on hold for it or something like that. But you can go and you can get it, you can download it on Libby or whatever. And so that's when they try it. It's just out of necessity. We also have a lot of people who will come in and get an audiobook saying, oh, I'm traveling to Tennessee or something, and, we're going to put this in the car and we're going to listen, whereas hopefully they're not reading a print book while they're driving. So, I think it depends on the situation, depends on the availability, and the urgency that somebody wants to consume a certain book.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And do you have any opinion on that, Sarah?
I definitely agree with Claudia. I think a lot of what I've seen has been people, it's not available in one form, and maybe it has a shorter holds list in the other one, or it's immediately available. So someone figures, why not? I'll try this other means. I also think another thing is, with social media being as big as it is, a lot of people are getting their book recommendations that way.
Yes.
If you're on Book Talk or anything like that. And so one thing I've noticed is a lot of those books that are being recommended, they are ebook only, like Kindle Unlimited, or
that's absolutely true.
A subscription service. So maybe if someone primarily used to read print books, they might want to branch out just to read these specific recommended books.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, especially about the part of like not having the patience to wait for a certain a certain format. I feel that I will switch back and forth, especially because with Libby specifically, those can have holds too. So if I start off reading an ebook and then I want to renew it, but I can't because someone else put it on hold, it's like, well, I got to finish the book. So I'm like, well, can I get it as a print book then? And then you just got to find a way to do it. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. Today is my first ever 2 guests at the same time.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. And thank you to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please give us your opinions in the comments. What is your favorite format? Do you kind of bounce between all 3? Does it matter to you? What's your biggest argument for a particular one? We'd love to hear what you have to say. And I hope you join us again in the next episode of Circulating Conversations.